I swear to God, I thought you saw something interesting outside the hall, and I was like,
no, that was a woo for you.
I don't deserve that. My name is Ryan McLeod, Debbie Caps. I worked on my first YouTube video in 2010. Have been a part of founding 2 7-figure sub YouTube channels. I've partnered 4 Twitch channels. I co-founded a music label that I thought could do a better job than Monster Cat and NCS. Fundamentally, I think I was right.
You were.
On an execution level, we stumbled, but fundamentally, I was correct. I co-founded I want to say royalty-free, a DMCA-safe, well-managed, royalty-structured streaming service called Pretzel, which both of those were set up with the emphasis on making sure that artists, everybody was focused on how do we put money into streamers' pockets. And even as a content creator and a streamer, I was like, well, artists, like music artists, are creators too. So how do we bridge that gap, and how do we get those 2 communities working in tandem as opposed to adversarially? And sold off my equity in those 2 companies. I've been a full-time streamer since 2017. I've been doing this a long time. The numbers just keep getting bigger. So brought Noah onto the scene, and now everybody on this side of the table is my lawyer. So it's pretty great.
Yeah, we kind of packed the panel, if I'm being a little honest. Y'all, today's panel is going to talk about a few things. We got a variety of topics, but they're going to stem from 3 main topics. 1, somebody's having a great time outside. 1, music as it applies to music in streaming, using free music for your live streams. Music as it applies to getting music in and finding music for games. And also music as it applies to tabletop, your actual plays around your table, that kind of stuff. And also how to best work with artists and musicians. What are some pitfalls, what are some good things you can do, that kind of thing. So if you're looking for any of that, you're in the right place. If that doesn't cover anything that you guys are looking for, that's also fine. Just save it for questions, because we're going to save 15 minutes at the end. So let's talk about music and streaming first, because I think it's not a simple topic, but it's the less much of a bear. So Taffy, as the one that works as a Twitch partner, like as your job, what is the problem that you sought to tackle when it came to music and streaming?
I'll be brief about this, but the funny part of this is that I worked with a buddy of mine named Nate, who was the other co-founder of all these companies. And Nate and I didn't think I was going to be able to make it as an entertainer. I didn't think I had the grit to hold an audience enough to make a living. So all I was really seeking to do was to keep myself in the ecosystem. I just wanted to be in the community. So he and I saw probably a half dozen problems that content creators faced, and we thought, well, we'll just tackle them one at a time, like 1 a year. And we started with music, and that was 6 years of our lives, and I had a nervous breakdown. We found ourselves going up against music law that was written around the time the Titanic sank, that's still enforceable, that was originally written for self-playing pianos, that's still enforceable for Twitch streamers today. So like I said, we realized that there was not a very good chance. Like, we had the music label, and we realized that wasn't enough music. I was the first user of Pretzel, the first user of our music label. And after listening to our music label's music 8 hours a day for about a half a year, I was like, this is not enough music, I'm going insane. And so we developed Pretzel, and that was, we'll never be able to get Taylor Swift, we'll never be able to get Ariana Grande, but we can find, like, I had spent enough time in YouTube that I had seen Macklemore come up from nobody on YouTube. I had seen stars come out of YouTube, and I was just kind of like, man, wouldn't it be cool if we had content creators where, like, a ninja meets up with a Macklemore on the way up, and it's utilizing these services, and a rising tide lifts all ships. But to do that, it took 5 years and 6 figures of our own money to hire. Eventually, we just needed mostly this, but it took us like 7 lawyers and 6 years and 6 figures to get there, because we'd never written what we basically call a micro license. Because people would hear Ryan Caps, some pudgy middle-aged nobody, wants the sync licensing to your music that normally Nissan comes after for a commercial. And they go, oh, okay, well that streamer can give me $63,000.
And to chime in on that, so one of the issues that I ran into when I was initially trying to figure out how are we going to make this work, how are we going to make music licensing right on Twitch so that we don't get the DNCA apocalypse that takes down the biggest channels on the platform. And what we found is that we need, the primary license that we need is something called a synchronization license. And this is where I pause everything up here, just as we're getting momentum, and say, hey guys, we're lawyers, but we're not yet your lawyers, unless we literally are your lawyers, in which case, hi guys. What we're saying here is for informational purposes only. It's not legal advice. We are available to talk afterwards if you do have specific questions. We get hired for that kind of stuff, but we are happy to chat with you. In addition, what I'm trying to say basically here is don't take this legal advice and try it at home. Go to a friend's house. Okay, so. But overarching, the license we found that we needed was a synchronization license. Basically, something that allows you to synchronize music in timed relation with video and images, or moving images as it's said at the time, because music law is old. It's as old as the battle dogs. And so it has not really been updated. They did have the Music Modernization Act in 2018. Didn't do much for synchronization licenses. So synchronization licenses, as Taffy identified, are also super expensive because they're the license that Honda needs to get Imagine Dragons to churn out another random hit. That's apparently all they do. And to put in front of like the latest Honda Civic plug-in hybrid or whatever. So when a streamer needs 8 hours of music a day, or a YouTuber needs 15 minutes of music, those YouTubers, those streamers, they can't be paying $60K per track for a perpetual license. Perpetual meaning that it's going to last forever. What they need is a simple solution so they don't get takedowns. And that's what Pretzel, which is a Spotify-like player for Twitch, solved. We basically got a generic license, went to a bunch of artists and said, hey, do you have the rights to your music? And most of them said no. And then but the few that said yes, we signed deals with, and they got on Pretzel. Anybody want to chime in real quick? Yeah. Cool.
Killing it.
Thanks. So we got them on Pretzel, and what Pretzel does is if you have Pretzel playing in the background, it attributes who the artist is, where you can find their music, and grants you as a user a synchronization license so that you can put that music in time relation with your video. That's 2 sentences that sound really easy, but it took 5 years to do that. And finally, the industry is really coming around on it because these big megacorps and mega labels have said, "Oh God, we'd love to do that." Problem is, if you go and like look up the rights for Drake's "God's Plan," we can't just go to Drake. We have to go to 53 different rights holders because 53 different people have their fingers in that pie, and 53 different people have to sign off on that license, which is insane. So that's why you probably won't hear God's Plan on Pretzel. I'm sorry. That's a lot of work, guys. But you will hear some awesome indie artists, and especially maybe some of the artists in this room right now would benefit from being on that platform as well. So it's a place where you can find indie music, some classic music that we got the rights to, and a lot of soundtracks.
I'm biased because I was the first user on the streaming service. But I've made friends with like a half dozen of the bands that have just become like either popular or even like meme popular songs in my channel.
Psychostick.
I've got viewers who are going and seeing Psychostick now and getting photographs with the band, and the band has been coming into my channel and being like, "Oh, user 123, it was so great seeing you in Cleveland on Tuesday. Hey Tappy, thanks for funneling people our direction." And that honestly was always kind of the non-monetary boon that I hoped to see kind of pipelined into that was, I have a new viewer that just happens to be a band that's a partner Twitch streamer and has juice in the industry, and they get a new pipeline of people where I go, "This song's awesome, this song's called Tuesday, we're going to listen to it every Tuesday until the heat death of the universe." And they come in on Tuesdays just to kind of dick around, have a laugh, and it may not be a ton, but I've sent 20, 30, 40 new people to their concerts over the last year, and I would imagine if you scale that over Twitch, that starts to become considerable.
And go ahead.
I was just going to say that, perhaps we should talk a little bit, because you guys are doing a great job laying the foundation of the problem. Maybe we should talk a little bit also about the legal side of why it's so complicated.
Yeah.
And about the different sorts of rights that can be spread out between a whole bunch of different people that makes it, looking at every single song, every single recording can be a different sort of structure, a different sort of ownership structure that then you as the person who's interested in using that music have to parse out all the different components of.
As the kids say, go ham fam.
Yeah, so probably the easiest one, if you've got a singer-songwriter, they've done the composition, they've recorded their own music, they've published it themselves on YouTube. It's a really simple process at that point, because then you got one person who owns the composition license, and that's part of the copyright. You've got the same person owns the recording copyright, and then if you want to go and obtain a license from them, you're just obtaining the license directly from them, not necessarily from
A label
or
or
a publisher. So they're granted rights to. Perhaps there are a whole bunch of other licenses that are out there floating around.
Let me chime in on that real quick. So what Ben's referring to, he's used two really key terms there that every musician, everyone in this audience needs to understand these basic aspects of music law. One is that music law is different from every other type of law because it's so complicated. Two, when you're looking at music, the copyright for music is like a bundle of sticks. And I think Taffy hates that analogy. But it's a bundle of sticks, and each of them can be plucked out individually to start your fire, that kind of thing. So what you have is...
No, they're already on fire. We
didn't start the fire. It was always burning since the world's been turning. Let's talk about follow-up, right? Anyways, so there's two sets of rights when it comes to music. The underlying composition, which is the notes on a page, and then the recording of that composition, which is, you might have guessed it, the recording. I saw that point. That was good. Thanks, man. And so the composition, that is the songwriter, and then the recording is the recording artist. And they have separate and individual rights. They don't always have the same rights. So you might see like the composer has the synchronization right, but the recording artist doesn't. Sort of. It's complicated. Talk to a lawyer. But
they might only have a mechanical license to use the underlying copyright to use the recording that they did, but not to then redistribute it with the same license.
Which is why sometimes when you're a game developer and you want to get a particular song in your game, but the recording version that you really love, that recording artist or their label says, yeah, that's about 150 grand, and you're like, I got like $2. How about that? They're going to say no. But if you find a composer who owns 100% of the composition, you can go to them and say, hey, can I synchronize this? Can I use this? And they'll say, yeah. And then you find somebody to cover that shit. By the way, we do curse up here. And so that's why in a lot of the games that you love, you'll hear covers of things because they couldn't get it from the recording artist. But the composer, who had 100% of the rights, that cleared that music. So when you're looking at music rights, when you're clearing them, you have 200% rights is what you're looking for. You actually need to clear 100% of the composition and 100% of the recording. And I'll be honest, if you got the recording artist, that is not going to get you there because the composer is the one that actually has all the rights that you want.
Then to make things even more complicated, there's something called joint copyright ownership. Yeah, and I'm not going to go deeply into that. But effectively, if if it's just a group of people getting together and making music, they have no entity that they've formed.
They don't have contracts?
Yeah, they don't have contracts, there's no paper there. Then technically, each one of them owns the copyright to the final production and can control the final production. And so it turns into this issue where, if everyone's in agreement, they're giving licenses to a single publisher, you should be able to work with one publisher in order to get things done.
Yeah.
But if not, and there's some sort of joint authorship issue, then you might be working with 5 different people who all contributed toward making this. When I say 5 different people, the drummer, the guitarist, the bassist, the vocalist,
So at that point you have split authorship and they can each equally use the underlying copyright of whatever they created together. But they have to account to everyone else for any profits they make from it. So if I do something, I've got 3 joint owners, and I make $1. then I give each of them a quarter so that we have 4 quarters together combined make like form of an iceman or whatever.
So talking about how things can be complicated, let's talk just briefly about how things could be simple. Leo, would you like to talk just briefly about work for hire in the music industry and how that simplifies this whole situation?
Yeah, work for hire contracts usually all the time. They mean that when you get hired by someone to do, for example, a song or a composition, the person that is hiring you owns it. So if you hire a musician, you don't have to deal later with any kinds of issues regarding the rights, because you're the one that has all the rights, and the musician just gave it to you for the money that you gave him for employing. So yeah, that's pretty much where work for hire works for. The thing about work for hire is that it needs to be explicitly written in the contract, and you can't just have a verbal agreement about that or assume that you have any rights just because you used it in your work. So always keep an eye out to at least get that in writing, because if not, you're not going to be able to use the music pretty much for anything, including the work that you were planning on using it for.
I just want to jump in as the dumbest person at this table and just say, if you don't take anything else away from this, that assumptions about what you can and can't do are ridiculously dangerous, and that will be the thing that will bite you so hard.
Yeah. And the second thing you should take away is, as Leo is saying, get everything in writing.
Yeah.
If it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. In contracts, save friendships. It's all wonderful when you and your buddies are getting together to make a game or create a stream team or something like that. But
Contracts prevent murder.
yeah, well,
It's not saying friendships, like contracts.
oh god.
The actions of contracts have almost sent me to federal prison. I can't.
I've been this lawyer for way too long.
Don't worry, no, this isn't recorded.
Yeah, it's totally recorded. It's right there.
You said you like a challenge.
Yeah. So yeah, contracts say friendships. Make sure you get everything in writing, and make sure that the writing says what you want it to say. If the writing just says, "I'm going to give you $10 for you to make a track for me," that ain't good enough. You need it to say, as Leo says, "Work for hire."
Yeah, I've seen people like screen grab tweets, and that's their contract.
Nope. That's bad.
And then one thing that is further complicated is that work for hire contract is only valid if it's signed before the work begins. You can't go back in and retroactively make somebody work for hire. So these are just things that I want you guys to be thinking about when you're sitting there going, okay, I want to use music, or I want to put my music out in the world. Then think about all the different components that go into making sure that you can actually do that. You can actually use the music that you want to use, or you can put it out in the world without being worried about getting in trouble.
It really is have a lawyer. That if you can afford a lawyer, have a lawyer. If you can't have a lawyer, use a public library card and learn until you're dangerous. Because we jumped in completely just stone blind and just assumed we'd knock it out in like a weekend.
Yeah, right.
And so that's what these guys did with Pretzel.
Yeah.
Was going through and streamlining all of these problems so that they could just hand something to streamers and make it a lot simpler for that.
It was the meme from Community where Donald Glover walks into the apartment and the apartment's on fire and he's holding pizza. That was us walking into, we're going to solve music law issues.
Yep.
And we walked in and just the whole flat was on fire.
Yeah, the way I like to see problems with copyright infringement is that it's relatively easy to avoid because you already know that it doesn't belong to you. So it's kind of like drunk driving or like having unprotected sex, where you know it's wrong, and a lot of people do it without consequences, but you might be the unlucky one that actually gets wrong with it.
That's actually really good.
Leo, that's amazing. That's amazing.
So practice safe internet and use a condom.
Yeah. Work for hire condom.
Welcome to MAGFest. we've had some real horror stories come through. A lot of people say, hey, listen, I can't afford a lawyer, so I'm going to use Rocket Lawyer or LegalZoom. And I'm going to say this into the camera. This is going to drive him crazy because it's going to skyrocket on my practice insurance. Hey, LegalZoom, Rocket Lawyer, if you're watching this YouTube video right now, hi, you suck. However, I'm grateful that Rocket Lawyer and LegalZoom exist because when they mess it up for you, you're going to pay me double what you would have paid me to start with to fix it.
Hell yeah.
And those are the clients that help subsidize the other clients. So, lawyers, what we do is, people are scared to talk to lawyers because they hear about horrible legal fees and they hear about, oh God, I'm going to get a surprise $5,000 bill or something. And honestly, we're not that scary. I mean, every lawyer on this panel right now does free consults where we get to know you, talk about our billing rates, all that stuff. Kind of figure out what you got going on, make sure that we can actually help you, because I'm not going to take something I can't do. And we're happy to talk to you, so never be afraid to talk to a lawyer. But that's kind of a tangent, so yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about, okay, we talked about the problems, we talked about what you guys have done with Pretzel to try to solve this problem. Let's talk about what else is going on as far as music licensing, other types of music licenses that are out there.
Yeah. Ben, you want to talk about music licensing for game devs? Like composers versus licensing existing tracks? Or you want me to pull that thread because it's in my head already?
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, cool.
I think I was just talking about that, so I'm not sure what else you want me to say.
I just went through a ton of that.
Yeah, so we have a very cool gig coming out pretty soon that our firm was the legal team for called Pacific Drive. And obviously we can't talk about attorney-client privilege things, but Pacific Drive is dope. You're in a car, and cars have radios. And so when you're cruising along in the vehicle...
Wish List on Steam.
Yeah, Wish List on Steam right now.
It's actually really, I'm not their lawyer, it's really good.
Yeah. Hashtag not sponsored. So it's a fantastic game, but when you're in the car, you got stuff that you want to listen to. Sometimes you're just driving along. Okay, actually, who in the room drives in their car without music right now? Psychopath. That is, seek help. But anyways.
NPR counts?
Yeah, NPR counts, yeah, NPR counts.
I just like feeling bad.
Yeah, okay, cool. So one of the things that a lot of game devs worry about is, hey, where's the music going to come from for my game? There is so much, music is so important to creating dramatic moments or hitting the right emotional notes, especially when games these days are becoming even more cinematic in scope. Music is just becoming more and more important for integration. So you can go one of two routes, unless Ben tells me there's a third. You can hire a composer to make all the music for your game, or you can license existing music from existing artists. So who in this room is a composer for video games? All right, so hire these people. And who in here is a musician that would like their music to be licensed? All right, or license it from these people, or all the above. So one of the things that Pacific Drive does is it has an original soundtrack, but it also has licensed music. And so we got to do both of those for that game. One of the problems that you really run into as a game dev when it comes to licensing music is, hey, licenses have term limits on them most of the time. I'd love to use, I don't know, one of the Barbie movie songs.
Alan Wake, we couldn't buy Alan Wake for like 16 or 18 months because they had David Bowie on there and the license had run out.
And Grand Theft Auto, the radio changed because Grand Theft Auto 3, they only had licensing for approximately 5 years. So if you have a term limit on your license, your game's going to go off the shelf, and it puts a shelf life on your game. Now, with all of the retro gaming and the revival and emulators that are coming out these days, and our ability to play old games, you never want to put something in your game that's going to limit its shelf life. Because you never know when you're going to have the next Among Us that sits on a shelf for 2 years and then major streamers play it. So keep that in mind when you're licensing those.
Yeah, if you've got an opportunity to compose your own music and then it's something that you own, that is so much more valuable in the long run. Just think if Nintendo had licensed the Mario song from someone else, what was that? 40 years ago, rather than coming up with an entirely new theme. Instead, it's become a trademark for them. So,
That's the reason that Riot does all their composition in-house.
Yep.
Yeah, and I also like to see it as an artistic challenge for the devs, for the devs, because it's not easy to match. Like Noah said, it's a complex process to match music to the beat of the game. And if you manage to get original compositions that accomplish that, and you don't depend on anyone else, it's ideal.
Yeah.
I guess just another example, you were talking about Pacific Drive, which is one where we had to do a lot of music licensing.
Oh my God.
Another client that we help with, the game's out now. It's another one that's outstanding called Put It With a Gun. And that one was all work for hire. So
God, that music's so good
yeah,
too.
and when they first dropped their trailer 2.5 years ago, I would just put that music on repeat in the background. It was so good. And yeah, helping them walk through all the different options that they had for obtaining music, and then helping them to find the right person to then do the music that they wanted to do was a lot of fun, and it's really cool to see the work that they did to turn something into a comprehensive whole. I'd kind of like to tie, we're giving another panel later this weekend about finding jobs in the industry.
Oh yeah.
And so I'd kind of like to tie this together real quick, because obviously there are people here who are composers, there are people here who are licensing, there are people here who are devs.
Perfect.
And in my experience, whenever I'm helping a client to find someone, whether it's an artist to do graphic work or a musician, we'll go out and we'll look at who's done similar work. Maybe we can find someone that way. But we'll also look toward the local community. And we'll see, okay, I'm from Seattle. We've got a very active music scene out there. We've also got a very active video game development scene. And so, we go to local meetups. We see who's there. We see who wants to work in the industry. And then we make connections.
Yeah.
I would love to hear from the audience about, how you guys have been able to, for example, one of the composers, how you guys tend to connect with people who want to use your music, and then maybe we can get some advice on.
Absolutely. So those of you who are composers who have found success in licensing your music or doing work for hire, please raise your hand if you feel comfortable doing that. All right, sounds good. Great start. All right, well, you're cool though. Like you're really cool. I know who you are, I think. So, are you comfortable talking about the process of how you got your music out there?
So I didn't do the same. It was just like it was like a work for hire.
Work for hire, yeah.
Okay. How did you meet the people that you worked with?
I think they just messaged me on either Twitter or Instagram, I believe. Just having
DMs.
seen the music out there for a while.
So they found you through your social media platforms?
Yeah, I would put out that I'm interested in these types of things. If anyone ever wants to go that lane, and eventually somebody saw that was a possibility, and they're like, hey, would you be interested in doing these things?
That's dope.
Just short vibes.
Yeah. What about you?
I was going to say,
Everybody, yeah.
hey everybody. One of my songs got synced to Live In last year. Everyone here should be familiar with Konami.
Yeah.
So I will say they reached out, and it wasn't Konami. It was, you have the middleman. So the middleman was an actual company that found songs for Konami.
Yeah.
And they said, hey Lizzie, random, we have purchased one of your songs. So I say step one, make sure you submit your music to a bunch of different libraries and sync libraries on the internet, because you think people aren't shopping through those libraries, but they
reputable
are.
ones.
And they find your song through subject lines. So if my song is poppy and it has a little bit of violin in it, they're probably looking for that. So then they're like, boom, violin has to be pop, boom. When they find it, then they hit the artist up and go, hey, we found your song through this bank. Is it okay if we take it for this? And then that's how it works. Sometimes you get paid, sometimes you might get a stipend. You talk about the logistics with them. It was Konami, so I was like, take it. It's on PlayStation, and it's a game that dropped literally in November. It's like a Guitar Hero type revenge type.
What's the name of the game?
Crazy with the Castle.
Congratulations.
Congratulations! That's
Is that how? I don't know if y'all are familiar with the musician Big Giant Circles.
awesome. Yeah, BGC.
So, is that how Jimmy got his music into like Stranger Things season 2?
Yeah, so to kind of summarize, that was actually perfect.
That was a great topic.
Thank you, our audience plants.
Yeah.
So which sounds like the worst advice you're going to hear at MAGFest, but it honestly is post your music. Put it out into the world. Put it on Spotify. Put it on Apple.
I'm not the lawyer, dude, but I gotta jump in and just say, please, again, in reputable catalogs.
Yes,
Please don't blind sign every 800 websites that you see that are like, oh, we'll put your music in NCIS or whatever.
Yeah.
Like reputable catalogs and distributors. Please read what you're signing away, because I had an artist one time for our music label that he sold us music, and then he came back 3 or 4 months later when we'd sold thousands and thousands of copies and goes, hey man, big whoops, Warner Brothers owns my music, including what I sold you, and they want to talk.
I remember that, and when Warner Brothers showed up, we said, okay.
And I like to think of myself as a gruff person, but I was so, I was such a submissive, I rolled over and showed my belly. It was just like,
it was so weird to roll my phone.
I have no safe word.
But
You're like, Ryan, did you just roll on your back?
these questions are
directly related to that.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
So is this assuming you're telling people to go for non-exclusive licenses on the libraries?
Yeah, so typically what we recommend is putting things out there. I love that. We're going to sign the test. Repeat the question.
Very good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Clap for sign that. So the question was, and we are going to save most of the questions for 5 minutes from now. But the question was, are we suggesting to sign and license your music non-exclusively? Meaning it goes to multiple, it can be licensed to multiple folks instead of to one folk. Yeah, okay. And the answer typically is when you're listing with these folks, I'm just going to keep going, I'm rolling with it. When you're listing with these sites, with these folks, with these organizations, it is better if you must do a license to do it non-exclusively, but make sure it's terminable, meaning that you can terminate that license at will.
Yeah.
Meaning that they can't just put your music all the way out there and block you from doing other things. So here's one of the things that we run into, frankly, with agency contracts, is that if an agency contract for an influencer is signed for 2 years non-exclusive, what that means is that influencer still can't sign exclusively because they've given a non-exclusive right to someone else that they can't terminate, which is a problem. So the best option if you're listing your music with synchronization websites and putting them out there for headhunters and finders is to say, hey, here's my contact, here's my tracks. You don't have these except to play them or a snippet. I have them. List them to me and I'll give you a commission, that kind of thing. Second best is to license them out so that people can actually license on your behalf with your approval. What we don't recommend, I don't think, is okay, cool. What we don't recommend is putting your music out there so that it can be licensed without your knowledge or direct consent in each case. You don't want to just blindly license your music. You need to know where it goes. That way, if Warner Brothers does show up, you can pull the ripcord on everybody else, or at least let Warner Brothers clear it and say, oh, I'm not too worried about that random guy on TikTok. Speaking of TikTok, that's another great place to get your music out there. There's a lot of music out there. Discoverability has gone down in the last 6 months. But make sure your music is on TikTok, because you have the shot to go viral there when Instagram and others you really won't.
Well, I've certainly never heard of Crash Adams before TikTok, and now they won't get off my feed.
Man, Nick D will not get off my feed for some reason. Jiminy Christmas. Connor Price.
Before we hit Q&A, can I throw out,
I've got one follow-up on the exclusivity question.
Yeah, do it.
So on that also, exclusivity, non-exclusivity, very important. If you've got a reputable publisher that you're working with, and it's someone that you really want to work with in the long term, exclusivity is perfectly fine. One thing that we always try to push our clients, and we always try to retain, even if we're granting an exclusive license to someone else, is retain the right for the artist to continue using their music.
Yeah.
So that you can keep publishing it, so that you could have it up on your YouTube channel, you could perform it live. Otherwise, you might end up in a situation where you've licensed something that you own to someone else, and then you're not able to use it yourself.
You lose control of your own IP, which sucks. Now, if you're a dev, you want the opposite. So make sure you have a good lawyer to argue against each other.
That's how we met.
Kind of piggybacking off of that is like be conscientious when you submit your music to like CD Baby and DistroKid.
Or don't.
Or don't, but it's like if you decide to go that route, there are options, and they're gonna sound good in theory because they framed them to sound good in theory.
YouTube money.
And they basically frame it as, how would you like if we went and just snatched YouTube money out of the ether for you? But you do that and all of a sudden your music is being claimed on every YouTube video that goes up. You become radioactive to content creators. They spread the word that your music can't be fucked with. And on top of that, like you do have situations where people go to post their own music and they go, my music video just got claimed for the song that I stuck into whatever distribution outlet. So just be, if you decide to go that route and distribute through someone like that, be very careful, step by step, make sure that if you agree or opt into anything, that you're kind of playing chess, not checkers, with what the down the road of that is.
That said, you can opt into Pretzel with DistroKid now. So.
Oh, really?
Yep. That's cool. Leo?
Real quick, a little bit away from the legal side. I think a lot of artists and a lot of professionals get the imposter syndrome, and they don't want to put their music out there for fear of being criticized. And there's like a million devs out there. Someone will like and use your music. Like just put it out there, let people listen to it and see what happens.
Finding your first hater is a badge of honor.
Yeah.
You're not with YouTube, when we started our first ever YouTube channel, holy shit, it was a long time ago.
Was that
2011 was our first video. The January 2012. Yeah. Channel.
I was born, yes.
We were celebrating our 300th YouTube sub, and the thing that really kicked us off was we were so excited that we got our first negative comment. We got our first like, these idiots don't know, and I was like, Robert, get the champagne. Somebody hates us. We're real. We're bona fide. And I would encourage you to feel that way about your music. Is that you can get a lot of people who may be paying you lip service, but until you got somebody who's like, this shit's terrible. Like, oh, there it is. Okay, now I'm out here.
Well,
now we're on the street.
What's even funnier about that is that back then they were making Call of Duty videos, like passive aggression and on machinima and stuff like that, so it's amazing it lasted until 300.
I'm shocked it took us that long, yeah.
Yeah, so,
Q&A?
Q&A! Alright, actually, I'm going to give away my mic because I'm naturally loud. Is that good? I can do that? Cool.
Agreed.
Come on up.
Come up, yeah, form a line over there.
Yeah.
And the first one gets to take my mic.
To live the dream, take Noah's mic.
Somebody take Noah's mic.
Please.
Hey, good, that means you go first.
And we can hear you, so go ahead and face the audience.
No, I said when you get here.
Oh.
I've been here for a minute.
I've been here. Yeah, there you go. You get to get in front of us.
Basically, all I wanted to do was just touch up on the thing you said earlier.
Oh, wow.
So,
Talk a little closer to the mic, too.
yes,
Yes,
so
there you go.
you were talking about putting into reputable things.
Yes.
And for some people who might not necessarily know, I'd like you to go on a little more depth with that. So,
yeah.
how do they identify those things, right?
Sure.
Because, making sure.
Yeah, how do you figure out who's reputable?
As somebody who started flat-footed with no knowledge in the industry, I still don't think of myself as a music person. I own these 2 music companies, and I felt embarrassed how little I was connected to the scene. It starts with community. I knew a lot of musicians, I knew a lot of artists, and so it started off with going to them. Like, we didn't even know what a PRO was when we first got started. So I had to go learn about PROs. I started to learn about which sites engaged in shady practices. I wouldn't take anything that you find on like Reddit as like the gospel, but it's a good jumping off point where you get like contrasting viewpoints. And then after that, like I did get lucky enough that I had the funds necessary that I go like, this is making my head spin. You do it, and I'll pay you hourly to do it. And then it becomes his job to go out and go, no, I know that guy. That guy's just a cokehead who has a website that looks good, but his legal is like y'all laugh. Like, these are conversations we've had.
No, like actually.
Yeah.
And so one way that I'll do it, this is just, I'm a lawyer, so I like looking at legal.
You're a lawyer?
I know. So I will look at the website and then I'll start digging down into their terms of service, their privacy policy. And if I see something where like they posted a privacy policy in 2016 and have never updated it since then, That's a pretty big red flag for them. They're not actually on top of their shit.
Yeah.
Or, if they've got a terms of service up there that's like 1 page long and,
and it's copy pasted from somebody
With
else.
another company's name on it.
Yeah, exactly.
I had
I'll
a
accept
conversation
that,
with a client, and just to put a cap on this question, since we want to make sure we're time. I had a conversation with a client last week where I said, hey, listen, these people say that they do good work for their people. They have good reviews, people that we know. Their contract is ass. So I don't trust their legal.
I've had musicians, I had a approach from Nirvana, went to a company and asked for like work for hire template or whatever it was, and they were handed back their own template that had gone out in the world and like had boomeranged back to them. And they were like, shit, this is ours, like very specific verbiage.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is ours, they've just
Lifted it.
yeah, they've just lifted it. They've just respect it. And so if you're smart, you can get into the nitty gritty and kind of see inconsistencies. If you're dumb, it's just old school internet sleuthing.
Well, it's not even like, you don't need to know exactly what those terms are saying. You don't need to know if the privacy policy is accurate. But just give it a sniff test.
Yeah, that's really it.
And I think that's great. There's something as simple as that,
Yeah.
right? Like even myself, I would have never thought that specific,
Yeah.
right? So when you're going and you're looking, it's different to look for something and then to know little specific things that you should be putting your eye on.
That's a real nice kick the tires test.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
for
job.
sure.
All right, next question. Hey, Brent.
Hello. So music synchronization is kind of at the core of this issue. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, totally.
So I am obviously not. I am a very hobbyist user. But I like get to the root of problems, and I know that generally speaking, right, in terms of intellectual property law, it's like we've had like basically Disney championing for a while. Sort of, to an extent.
Yeah.
But, as some of us know at least, that's starting to they basically kind of lost their long-term battle there, which kind of leaves the opportunity for IP law to actually open up again and see change.
Long live the mouse.
Yeah, right. But, if they lost this battle, then there's less, financial incentive for them to pursue it any further. So if music law is outdated to this point, can we see it change alongside IP law? I know it's a little out of scope.
So there have been changes to simplify the process. So, back in the late 90s, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act made things a lot simpler, especially to identify and take down copyright infringement online.
Right.
And there's constantly being a precedent where these laws are being reinterpreted and brought up to scope. So I hesitate to say that Disney is lost at this point because no one's challenged it, and it's
Yeah, they still got things, but it's more so like the main extension that gets in the I think that's in the way of a lot of public domain access.
Yeah, that's true.
One thing that we find is that legislators are very lazy. So
guys, Congress sucks. Have you heard?
You guys would be shocked to hear that they don't like doing stuff.
Yeah, this system works.
Right.
It's not great, but it does the job, and so it's probably not going to get overhauled anytime soon. The only reason why the copyright law got overhauled back in the 70s was because Disney essentially paid for it.
Right.
And the only reason the Music Modernization Act happened in 2018 was because music law was based on radio, and I haven't listened to AM in a long time.
All right.
Also, if you
Leo lost his train of thought.
go ahead.
That's all right.
Awesome, thank you.
Good question.
Does this mic work? Oh my god, I got a wireless mic.
What's that this?
No, I got this right now.
Wait.
Give them a
Okay, fine, I'll trade you. How about that? By the way, I like your hoodie. That's dope.
How's it going? I go by Jay Brown, I'm a producer, composer. One of the things that I'm working on, I was working with artists to get sync placements. You mentioned going by 7 artists going straight to the composer, promoting like 100% of the publishing share. Can you talk a little more?
The composition. Yeah. So, and then getting
What you call publishing share, yeah.
Okay, so 100% of that. Like, tell me a little bit more about that because I like the idea of just broadcasting.
Yeah, so basically, if you're able to go to an artist that hasn't signed with a publisher or something like that, then they probably still retain 100% of their publishing rights, so their composition. It's the underlying words on the page. And so if you can go direct to the artist, that's phenomenal. And the way that you do that is, honestly, there used to be much easier ways to do it, but honestly, it is just a matter of DMing people. The easiest way to do that is if you find somebody that doesn't have like some agency email in their bio or something like that, then almost 100% they're going to own 100% of the work. So that would probably be the best way to do that. Key when you're reaching out to artists directly, though, as someone who helps with sync placements and things like that, is to make sure that you're offering competitive deals to them, because if you don't, then they're sniffing for like somebody to rip them off, because they've been ripped off historically. So be very careful with that, because they're looking for predatory people. So, and you are not predatory, but what I'm saying is be careful, because you're going to run into like stigma inherent.
That first impression will be important.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. But as a composer, producer, how, when working with an artist, or let's say we are working together to get something in sync, how can I retain my rights so that I don't have to reach out to that guy?
Contract.
Yeah. What would that look like on
Like a work for hire or a collaboration agreement, something like that.
Yeah, just something where you guys define who owns what. Something where maybe the musician is going to own the recording copyright, you're going to own the underlying composition copyright. And if you guys just get that down on paper from the very beginning, or it doesn't necessarily need to be from the very beginning, it could be once you're in the process and you want to work together, then, at least you've got it written down, so if there ever is a fight about it, you're able to be like, no, we already agreed to how this is all going to work.
Yeah. And like the law, correct me if I'm wrong, because the only bar that I ever passed is for scotch. But the law inherently will protect your rights as the creator, but it'll get so sloppy trying to prove it, and it's so much cleaner to just have it pre-written and pre-existing in a written understanding. Because otherwise it breaks into a I said, they said, and then I got into a situation where it was like litigation. What I could prove, what he could prove.
What you could afford to prove.
What I could afford to prove, because it really did reach a point where he and I were staring down six-figure legal bills, fighting over six figures, and it was just kind of like, we're just going to divide the baby in half and just hand it to lawyers and walk away.
Which we're fine with.
Yeah, which they would legally take it. Not them, it wasn't them, but so it eliminates a lot of slop.
Yeah, think about it.
Yeah, just a quick second. I rebooted my brain. Going back to the how Congress sucks and how bad legislation is. No matter what the interpretation of the law is, even if you're right, these companies have much more money than you.
True.
Yeah.
So fair use is never a good argument.
Fair use is bullshit.
If you ever think that you're going to be able to use something because of fair use, just walk away.
Yep.
Yeah. Fair use is like the legal equivalent of saying in a bar fight you wouldn't hit a guy with glasses on. Like it may work.
I will hit a guy with glasses on.
But you also may get hit with a bar stool.
Yeah.
Someone once said fair use is like a cross, as if lawyers are vampires.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Question.
All right. First off, can't wait to see you play Persona 3.
Oh yeah, dude, I'm fired up.
Can't wait for that. My question is, at the beginning of the panel, you said it takes like 53 people to talk to get one song.
For God's plan. Yeah.
Yeah. If you wanted a song like that, but you only needed like a minute duration and not the whole thing.
Doesn't matter how long it is.
Doesn't matter. You can still do
duration won't matter.
Even if you take a half a millisecond or less.
An identifiable note.
Yeah. Not even sometimes.
Yeah.
Then what you're relying on is the aforementioned fair use, and that don't work. So unfortunately, no, it doesn't matter the duration at all. It matters. It matters that the fact that you weren't taking part of that work. And so you
have
would
a
still
whole 30 seconds less, 20 seconds less.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
Utterly.
That is bullshit.
That's fabricated bullshit by people who don't want to have to go through the.
I learned that at film school.
Yeah.
You got about 3 minutes.
3 minutes till lightning round.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. If you find yourself in a suboptimal contract, how do you protect yourself from? How do you get out of that situation?
Lawyer, easy, done.
Without
Lawyer.
Lawyers for the arts.
A legal clinic.
Legal clinic.
Lawyers for the arts. Call your bar association. They have a list of lawyers and recommendations too.
Also, call your local law schools. They'll have 2L and 3L students who have not yet passed the bar, but want to be involved in helping to sort out real matters. Who are willing to volunteer their time.
Yep. Cool. Yeah.
Okay, really fast. As a licensor with very little money, do you have any best practices for navigating Creative Commons licenses?
Hiring a lawyer. No, I'm kidding. The Creative Commons license is something we've all become a lot more familiar with after the OGL being the animal district. Jesus Christ. So, boom, baby. So Creative Commons licensing, there's a lot of literature out about it on the internet, on the Creative Commons websites. Make sure you know what type of Creative Commons license you're looking at, and then honestly, just read. If you need to confirm, talk to a lawyer for 20 minutes. Like, it's just to make sure. But Creative Commons is, be careful because you could end up putting all of your work into the Creative Commons. So, great question. Hello.
Hello. Hopefully this is a quick question.
Yeah.
I'm a big brass man that does like very, very different interpretations of things that are influenced by video game music. So like mashups or things that are inspired or influenced by. But it's not cookie cutter. It's not like we just always pair two songs up.
Yeah.
So we kind of have like a portfolio of different interesting legal complications on releasing our music to like Spotify and other things.
Yeah.
Is there either a good resource or a good a place I can start looking to find the right information on how to approach that?
Yeah,
where's your business card?
Maybe I should talk to you guys.
Yes, I would actually say with that one, no, there's no one stop resource. I'll be honest, I've been able to tell everybody else, like, talk to like legal aid or something like that, talk to a law school, look it up, educate yourself. What you're doing is incredibly difficult.
When we build Pretzel, we wouldn't let covers on because it's just too complicated.
Yeah, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot, and all it takes is one bad mistake, and copyright infringement is up to $150,000 per infringement. So, don't mess up.
Thanks.
Yeah. Hey! Yeah.
You guys have any advice for publishing administration services, and if you should go with them at all when you're trying to think about introducing a video game syncs like scenario?
So publishing and administration services, absolutely. First of all, potentially, if you're at that point, you need to get a music manager, I would recommend, or hire somebody that's working with doing this for a lot of people. As lawyers, we sometimes handle that for folks, but in general, we work more with the managers and the individuals themselves. So I would recommend educating the shit out of yourself on that. And then we got a couple of recommendations we can make for you later. But yeah, in general, read. All right, we're going to hit these last two questions. I'm so sorry, room guy.
Hi, so I do music for video games.
Nice.
And I was recently doing the soundtrack for Beat 'em Up, but due to some drama on the dev team, the game got canceled, everyone just kind of scattered to the wind.
Oh, God.
Never spoke to anyone again. Now, I signed a contract with these folks, but since the game didn't come out, do those rights for the song just kind of come back to you, or is that contract
depends on the contract.
It depends on the contract.
Work made for hire?
I believe it did. So
It's most likely, if they had good legal, then they probably still retain it somewhere. But we would need to review the contract specifically.
If you want the music back, I'd reach out to them and say, hey guys, I see you're not doing anything with this.
Maybe no fuss, no muss.
I did get a yes for the dev team, but I'm still just kind of worried about that contract.
Well, in that case, be your own advocate.
Yeah.
Yeah, get a yes, get it on paper, and then take back your music.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy. Last question. Our intrepid back the room person.
My question is, so, and I guess a tip for you guys, the two main sources that I ship my music to was Songtrust and Sound Exchange.
Oh!
So my question is, do you guys know any sync libraries that I should be submitting my music to where gamers or games specifically are searching for music?
You honestly are light years ahead of most people. And so you've done the basics. Like, there's a few very specific ones out there, but they're more complex. You got it. Like, you're doing it.
That you even know of Songtrust and Sound Exchange.
Yeah.
You head and shoulders above.
Phenomenal job.
Most of the people that we'll talk to.
Phenomenal. Easy way, like, you know, like, like a specific one for gaming.
That's the problem, is that there's not a lot of pretty easy
Yeah.
off-the-shelf solutions. So.
Come to all the rest of our panels because you're awesome.
Thank you.
Hey guys, thank you so much. We're going to